Well, I've got a fun waving up there for the 27th time this season to start a Podful of Saints for the 2021-22 season. And that pod, no, it didn't, that fun belonged to Jacob Ellacott. Evening, Jake.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lee. How is this number 27? The Saints have only played about 14 games. Unbelievable.
Something like that, Jake. You've lost a plot somewhere. Hopefully more up to date is Lee Wood. How you doing, Lee?
Happy New Year, David. Happy New Year, Jacob. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, very true.
Well, we had our New Year ruined, didn't we? Right. Since about the 18th of December, we've had this for a team sheet, a blank one. Ta-da! But on January the 2nd, we had that. Yes, if you look closely, it says 2021, but we shan't worry about that. That's not bad for our club, I tell you. What do we make of it? A 3-1 defeat to Hemel Hempstead Town. In my eyes, we got off lightly.
Ooh. I mean, I think obviously 2 weeks off, never ideal, but general sense, not just from on this pod, a lot of supporters I've spoken to, I think a little bit of a wake up call. I think sort of in terms of the Saints actually have got a few issues that they really need to work on the next couple of weeks.
Jake, that wake up call has been humming over our heads for a good few weeks now, mate. That's not an immediate thing.
No, it's very true. But I think I get the sense that the wider supporter base now sort of, I mean, the amount of comments I've seen on social media and on the forum, etc., saying we need to do something about this now. But yeah, as you say, Dave, I mean, the game itself, the Saints, created a few openings, but I thought Hemel at times just cut us apart, didn't they? They made it so easy and had no complaints at all from me in terms of the scoreline and result. Got what we deserved.
Well, we got one. We didn't deserve that goal. That was a joke, wasn't it, our goal?
It was absolutely brilliant. Stood behind the goal. I thought, that's gone off. I looked away. We kept playing. What's that about? Brilliant finish from Sean. But yeah, Dave, I think you've got a photo, haven't you, of how far off the ball went. I haven't watched highlights back, and we were talking about this during the game. The officiating left lots to be desired, and strangely, most of it went in our favour as well. So I think we're a bit lucky there.
You go along with that, Lee?
Yeah, I want to touch briefly on something that young Mr. Ellacott has said, that he's going to get no complaints from him, mate. You were complaining plenty on the terraces. You were complaining plenty. Let me get that absolutely out there, Dave. That was atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And what frustrates the hell out of me, mate, is that yet again another decent crowd at the park, and I don't mind. That players have bad games, but this is a team game and everyone else has got to step up to the plate. Michael Johnson's thrown a couple in. Jeffers gets isolated too easy. They're going to have games like that. Everyone else now has to step up to the plate. And it's frustrating that there were people leaving Clarence Park disappointed because we just didn't turn up at all. The fans turned up, but the players didn't. And that's what's really galling, because you know what? This isn't us looking through St Albans City tinted glasses. This is the expectations that the players and the management set upon themselves. They've already set their stall out early doors about how they want to play the game, about how they want to score goals, how they want to take teams apart. Unfortunately, mate, Hemel took us apart with considerable ease. And you're right, it could have been more.
It wasn't a one-off, was it? You look at our form since Forest Green Rovers. We had an excellent second half against Dulwich Hamlet. Since then, we've had a functional performance at Oxford City, who didn't seem particularly interested in the FA Trophy. We've won 1 out of our last 5 league games, but that performance is not greatly different from what we've seen in recent weeks. That side is very much struggling. All right, Ian made a point, 7 players hit with COVID in the run up since Christmas, really, and a couple of club members as well. Did that have an effect on the game? He said they didn't train for a week, but no, because you look at the other performances, you've got to take it all as one big thing, haven't you?
I think you do. I think there's always going to be that thought about whether COVID impacts things. And, there were certain players that I think only got 1 training session in before the game, but they've got to deal with that. If that's an issue, Ian's got to rotate his squad. And that potentially goes back to the issue of, is the squad deep enough at the minute without having to pull lads out from the academy to fill it in when we have issues like COVID?
Fellas, I'm sorry, right? But if you cannot get up for Hemel at home in front of nearly 2,500 people, there's something fundamentally wrong with the way you are, you know, applying yourself to this game. You know, you're a St Albans City player. You should be going out there, and regardless of your ability, you know, the adrenaline will help you get sort of through. And we just weren't good enough. We were not good enough. End of period. And you know what? Those cries that Yusuf just said about people wanting us to sort of sign players, they're only going to get louder, and the discontent is going to get bigger and greater. And sooner or later, something's going to have to happen. Whether we are going to be just wallowing in mid-table, you know, or are we genuinely going to make a challenge? Because the next few weeks now, and this transfer window will just give every single fan the absolute pinpoint accuracy of how far and how serious the club are in challenging for promotion.
Well, of course, the transfer window doesn't bother us at our level. We can get players at any time, can't we? Which is why we banged on since the 30th of August about not having a right back. And we've mentioned the deficiencies in midfield as well. And nothing's happened. We brought in Bailey Brown from Hendon. You know, if we are serious about pushing for promotion, we should be doing a bit more than that, shouldn't we? Ian mentioned a possibility of faces in his post-match interview. He said the same, and a bit more, I think, to Neil at the Heart's Ad. It's got to happen, because you look at the form of that side and it does need changing. It needs strengthening.
I mean, I like Bailey Brown. I like him as a defensive midfielder, but teams that first half, he's typically playing attacking midfield. He's not an attacking midfielder. There's obviously some depth issues, and it's really good to hear Ian finally talk about adding some quality to the squad, at least depth anyway, because we've been screaming out for it for the last couple of weeks, haven't we? You know, forget COVID. It's been obvious, I think, and hopefully now in the next week or two, the Saints start to move forward. We know at least one midfielder that we probably can't name at the minute that hopefully the Saints might be able to sign. We don't know, but we just need
James Comley. Oh no,
we just need bodies. And we talk about signings. Look at Hemel. Who scored the third goal? Alfie Williams, on loan from Stevenage, son of a certain Dean Williams. I mean, you know, players you sign, they don't have to be great. They don't have to be from big clubs. Just get him in, and they can work a bit of magic and win those games.
Dean Williams actually came up to me after the game, Jake, and said that was his son out there on loan from Stevenage. And though Dean's lived in Hemel all his life, no affiliation with them, but of course he's watching them because of his son. And he was so proud that his son had scored at Clarence Park, which is something which Dean did quite a few times.
I mean, we talk about midfield. I mean, we keep talking about the game, the defence. I mean, some of the goals, I mean, what is going on there at the minute? I mean, again, how can we legislate for the ease of Hemel's goals? Unbelievable, really. Especially the first two, just so easy. The first goal, it surprised me because it was so easy so early on, and it just felt like the tone was set.
Well, they had two giant players, didn't they? They had two giant players, and we didn't pick them up at the corner. No. Simple.
Tabs, you were absolutely spot on there, mate. The amount of times our centre halves got caught ball watching. You know, you look back at the highlights, mate. Simple stuff, and attacking wise as well. You know, we were running away from all of our support channels in the first half, in particular on the left hand side. You know, Zane probably had one of his better games for us in recent weeks, and at least he looked a little bit sort of fiery and looked to take people on. But you can't take on 4 or 5 of his, Zane, because that's just too much, mate. Bailey Brown, not the answer for me in the middle of the park. Certainly not in the role he was designated to play on Sunday. But you know, this is a harsh autopsy for us, boys, because it was such a bad performance. And I know form and, you know, the table position goes out the window for derby games, but they, you know, if you look at it, they should have been there for the taking. Yes, okay, they've got a decent away form, Taz, and I know you're itching to sort of come on to that shortly, but you know what, mate? We should be looking at these sort of games to really progress and make a statement as well, because that was a shock. But the only statement that we made was one of despair, because not good enough for St Albans City side that has been pushing for promotion the whole season so far.
Yeah, Hemel haven't won at home yet this season, leave it unbeaten away from home, something like 7 or 8 now, which is a fantastic run. I bet they wish they could do it at home and boost their home crowds. It was their second win at Clarence Park in the league in 14 games, their 10th overall. But you're saying if our players can't get up for a game like that, there is a problem. And Ian did mention in his interview, our levels have dropped off, not just for that game, but for a little while. So he's aware of it, but he's got to do something about it, hasn't he?
I think those levels is what annoys supporters as well, because apart from the first 2 games of the season, the levels we reached and some of the football we played up to and including the Forest Green game was some brilliant football, some really entertaining stuff. My mind always goes back to Eastbourne at home, that second half, scintillating at times. Same with Dulwich. We may have lost then, but the second half there, the levels were still really good. And I don't know why it is, but they've really dropped off. And that's why fans and why us, people may think we're overreacting, but that's why we're disappointed, because we know what this Saints side can achieve. We know that a top 7 finish should be there for the taking, because no one else in this division looks particularly amazing this season. But last couple of weeks, we're starting to slip up.
Well, that was our 15th league game of the season. You might have seen this in my notes, Jake, so I'm going to bore you again.
Oh, no.
Because it was after 15 league games when the season ended last year. When Ian came into the side in the 15-16 season, he took control of the last 15 games of season. So we can take 15 games per season and compare his record. And our points total now is the 5th highest out of those 7 games. He's had 4 better seasons than this. There's not many points between them, but that tells you something about the side. It hasn't been that, despite those 6 straight wins we had earlier on, it hasn't been the great trailblazing season we thought it was. It's the cup that has really distracted it. And it's pretty mediocre compared to his other seasons.
That is very good statistics, Dave. To be honest, I'm glad you did that, because I don't think anyone else would have. But I think, from my perspective, when I compare it to what the rest of the league looks like at the minute, that's where my sort of comes from. I mean, the teams have come up against, the way the table is looking, it is so tight, so many sides in it, and the amount of games in hand we have as well. So, yeah, but no, I totally understand that.
But what I would say to that, though, fellas, is okay, we've played some better football this season, but in the past, we've had better players, far better players, right? And, you know, there's a correlation between having good players and achieving success as well. So I think Ian's been quite fortunate in so much that he's had the 2 fellas from the academy sort of tap into, but that's not going to be an ever-present constant. You know, there's going to be times when they aren't going to come through with the same quality that Lancashire and Dawson have done. So what do? Do we just sort of have the status quo and have faith in the players we've got now? I think Ian knows what he has to do. It's just a matter of how much money he's going to have to sort of do it with. I'm hoping the owners are going to be quite ambitious with it to match what they've been coming out and saying in the press about where they see the club going over the next sort of 5 or 6 years. So we'll soon see, fellas. And they're going to have to step up. There's no other word for it. You know, we don't mind spending the owners' money, but we don't want to see it wasted either, you know. So they're going to have to sort of do it wisely, but there are no guarantees in non-league, boys.
It's interesting about the money, isn't it? I know we've speculated for weeks and weeks, but we haven't spent a penny of it, not even on those 40 floodlight bulbs. You wonder how much the club are going to give him. Will they increase the budget for the rest of the season, or just to get a couple of specific players?
I think at this stage, I think you have to pinpoint the areas where you need to strengthen. You know, we're done with our utility players. We need key midfielders. We need key defenders now. You know, we haven't got time. We've got half a season to sort of try and re-establish ourselves and reassert ourselves on the rest of the teams. You know, having utility players from Hendon and Haringey isn't the way forward. We need quality Conference South or Conference Premier players.
Yeah, and money's not a problem. I mean, let's face it, Sunday's game, that's effectively a month's budget there for us on that one game. So on top of the FA Cup money, we could do what we like, really, you'd have thought.
We can, but also what will happen is if those performances keep continuing, you certainly won't be getting 2,500 in Clarence Park on a regular basis. Yet again, big crowd, and we were found wanting in terms of performance.
That's right. Those 4 games in hand or whatever it is on most clubs, I mean, nothing while we're playing like this.
Absolutely not.
And again, when you look at the depth of the squad, the amount of games we've got to fit in into this second half of the season, it's the squad is crying out for it. I mean, look at the bench on Saturday. Wasn't particularly strong, was it? Including a new signing actually, or an old new signing, Alex Clark, because it can goal. But you know, well, yeah, and I mean, probably one of the stars of the show was actually young Aaron Austin, who came on for 10 minutes in place of David Noble. Looked all right, another one for the academy. But when from the bench, your options are so limited. You just know, and again, players were out, but you've got to do something.
Well, Mitchell Weiss was left on the bench again, but apparently he's got a knee injury. So, according to the interview, so there's no chance of him playing the whole game anyway.
Well, there you go. And Liam Sol was out, Dawson was out, and there was another player out as well, wasn't there, Dave? We don't know why, whether fitness or whatever. So,
well, there's no updates on the site, are there? You got Tom Bender, you got Hugh Dawson, Michael Clark, Liam Sol. You mentioned there. Nothing on the website to say, well, how long are these players going to be out for? How are they progressing with their injuries? Come on, you got supporters paying £16.50 a game down there. Keep them informed as to what's going on, and please don't use the person who did the tannoy on Sunday.
Oh, he had to get a dig in, didn't he, Lou? He had to mention it.
Was the tannoy not to your liking, David?
Went to Harpenden yesterday, Lee, and that was the only topic amongst City supporters there.
That's how bad the football was then, was it?
Oh, dear.
There we go. But the Hemel, all right, we're saying the goals we gave away, but they looked a team, didn't they? They were quite impressive, and you can see them. We're 3 points behind us now. All right, we got 4 games in hand. But you can see them continue to climb up the table.
Well, away from home, yes.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think, yes, they were organised, and I think they had a bit more energy than us. But if you take away the 2 mistakes from Johnson, okay, they hit the bar with a fantastic header. But I mean, were we that bad in that so much that we made them look that good? I mean,
but there was another one, Lee, they claimed was over the goal line and the goal wasn't given. That looked a penalty when Zane clattered into that bloke down there. We got off lightly. Forget the goals we gave them, we still got off lightly.
Absolutely. They could have scored another 2 or 3. I mean, they had 2 or 3 excellent chances, to add to their tally. But again, I know people are going to come back at us on socials and say, fellas, you're being too harsh. But I'll tell you what, ours weren't the only voices that were crying out with discontent. You got 2,500 people in that ground. And to be honest with you, they brought a decent amount of following. And I was quite impressed because it did add to the atmosphere. I mean, the weather was torrential, but that's by the by. We have to perform in games like this if we are absolutely serious about getting promotion. We can't just put it down to COVID, the players. That was always on the cards. That was always a potential, hiccup that the clubs had to face. Christmas periods are always busy. Sharp, short intake of games over a concentrated period. This wasn't a new thing that was going to land on Ian's lap, and he should have been prepared. Yeah.
All right. MJ's taken a bit of stick for the 2 goals. He gave 1 or 2 away last season as well, but overall, you'd much rather have him between the posts than most of the other keepers in the league, wouldn't you?
All day long.
Absolutely.
All day long. But I think because he is so good, when he does throw a couple in, he gets highlighted, a little bit beyond what he should do. But listen, he has been one of, if not the defining players of our season, without a doubt, along with Jeffers. And even though Jeffers had a relatively quiet game, scored an absolutely fantastic goal, but that's what he does for you. He can score goals out of absolutely nothing. And Johnson can come up with worldly saves on a regular basis. But again, he had a poor game by his own accounts on Sunday, and I don't think he's going to sort of team anymore, he says, hopefully.
Actually, one of the other players I would exclude from criticism Sunday, I thought Alec Lancashire, I thought he was as good as anybody on the pitch for us. You might disagree?
He had to do a lot of running back towards his own goal, though, didn't he? So he was certainly a defender. There was none of this marauding sort of wing play that he's been synonymous with over the last sort of few months. Possibly. But again, when you're having to make last-ditch tackles 16 minutes into the game, defensively, you're not where you need to be. I don't think any of the defenders covered themselves in glory on Sunday, Tabs, and Lancs is going to need some help.
Welling United is coming Saturday. You'd have thought that's a good club to start our recovery from. They've had a bad run, but a good result on the weekend, away to Dulwich Hamlet in front of Dulwich, what, 7th successive capacity crowd, something like that, 3,334. And the goals were scored by Dippo Akinyemi.
Who?
What
Once
a play.
of his parish.
What a play.
They're only, I mean, yeah, they haven't had a great season. We beat them 5-0, didn't we? But they're only 6 points behind us, aren't they? I mean, the league is so tight at the minute, and the Welling game is absolutely huge, especially ahead of the FA Trophy game. We've got a week off there. If the Saints win against Welling, it's looking okay. If they lose or even draw, suddenly this season is starting to really drift, because we're not going to be far above the likes of 15th, 16th, 17th even.
Jake,
really,
mate, the league table's tight, the purse strings are tight, everything's tight around the club, mate, at the minute. Something needs to happen.
Of course, one of the most interesting things about Welling, down the park, we absolutely slaughtered them. They just laid down and died, but really, 5-0. And people will be looking at the result on Saturday with interest, just to see if we have slipped up that much.
Absolutely. I mean, if the Saints have got to come out 100% on Saturday, they've got to bounce back with, I think, 3 points. Draw might be fine enough, but you've got to be looking for maximum points from that game. If they don't, I think there's going to be a lot of questions from the fan base and even inside the club of where this season is going.
Oh, thanks for cheering us up again, Jake.
I know. I said to myself, I'll try and be positive. And, you know, I'm confident that we will win on Saturday. But
we are positive. On the whole, we are positive, but we are only reiterating all the voices on the terraces that we heard on Sunday. There was no one leaving that ground who is a St Albans fan thinking, you know what, we were unlucky today. We played well and we really should have got a point out of it. Absolute tosh. We got exactly what we deserved. Nothing.
We can't complain of the good fortune we've had this season. Look at that FA Cup run. We could have gone out of Concord. They had a penalty 5 minutes from time. Met Police had a couple of good chances to put us out in the next round. Casual should have thrashed us. We've had our luck. We can't complain if things are going against us now, and they certainly weren't Sunday.
Hey, Tabs,
that was
St Albans City, what a team.
Yeah,
It'll do it to you, mate. That's what they'll do to you.
Yeah, it's all right. We've got the league game Saturday. The following weekend trophy. Is it important? Well, obviously, it's not on the team sheet because it says next home game, Cheshunt is in the Art Senior Cup. I don't think that's true.
Easy mistake to make.
But we want to run in that still, don't we?
I mean, yes, of course. But, you know, now, you know, the tension is somewhat turned to the league again. But then if we get players back fit, if we bring in some additions in the next week or two, then we will be able to sort of balance the squad, hopefully, you know, put out a side that can beat Cheshunt. But it's going to be all eyes on Welling at the minute, isn't it? You know, a lot of focus on that, and hopefully we might see one or two new faces and give the squad a bit of a boost.
Yeah. It'd be nice to win there, but we've got to start winning at home. We're 4 home defeats already. That's not the way to keep crowds of 2,700 or whatever it was happy.
No. I have to say that, yeah, but our milk is turning sour, you know, and it is because it's, Jake, we were there, and the youth behind us, you know, the uber positive, even they were getting disgruntled on Sunday, you know, and they're the ones that you want to sort of, whose attention you want to maintain, because the diehards, we're going to go no matter how crap we are. But ultimately, we got all these new fans, and the club have worked so hard behind the scenes to get them in. You know, we've got to keep them, and unfortunately, you're not going to do that with performances like we did against Hemel.
Yeah, spot on. I think, you know, we can't fault the way the club has worked to get the crowds in, the youngsters in, etc. The crowd on Saturday was really good, really impressed. Sunday even. I say that goes into football as well. They want to be entertained. It's got to be good. Sunday wasn't particularly great entertainment-wise, especially from a Saints perspective. And, you know, we're coming into January and February now. The weather's not great. It wasn't amazing on Sunday. Yeah, it's easy to get people in the ground, but the football's going to keep them in the ground.
I'm not surprised you got the days wrong there, Jake. I should think you missed most of Saturday, not knowing what you were like leading up to the holiday.
Well, no, you know me, Dave.
He's going to blame me for that as well, taking him out.
Lee, Lee,
Oh.
did you enjoy buying your beers? What time did you go for beers, and what time did you return during the game? Only took you a little while.
I needed a Sherpa. At one point, I got so lost. It was over half an hour to get served. There was a family celebrating the life of a City supporter up in the clubhouse. Fantastic, but they'd sort of sectioned off half of the clubhouse, and it was just a sort of bottlenecking just to trying to get beers. Now, don't get me wrong, my life isn't dependent on alcohol, but whilst I'm watching us get absolutely tonked by our neighbours, a beer does go down quite well. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was over half an hour to get a beer, but this is a problem again that we're going to have about the club forward thinking and trying to get a new ground. Love Clarence Park, but when you have so many people in that old ground, she does begin to creak, you know, and the services aren't as always slick as what we would sort of like. But you know, it's what it was, mate. Everyone else seemed to be joyful and waiting in line patiently. Yeah.
Well, that supporter you mentioned passed away was Derek Hall over a year ago now. He'd been following us since the 1930s. He would have loved to have seen that size of crowd down there. And of course, he'd have loved to have seen us beat Forest Green in the FA Cup, but sadly it wasn't to be. But it's good to see the family mark the occasion. But talking about Lee, but taking a long time to get the drink and everything, that just shows how much money the club was generating off the pitch on Sunday. It must have been huge.
Which is brilliant to see, which is what we want. But trying to walk around the old new patio area, because obviously we have two now, the one by the York Road end, it was almost impossible to try and get through there. There were so many queues to the club shop, to the beer, to the food, trying to work out where to go. So I say it's what the club have wanted.
The old new patio. Just call it Trevor Spoons and we're done with it. You know,
they wanted to follow the Dulwich Hamlet model. And we're seeing that now, you know, in terms of refreshments, pitch side, etc. And it is working really well. And you say, Dave.
But Dulwich Hamlet also win football games, though, Jake. You know,
not when they're playing well, they don't.
Well,
but I would say the people watching the game, I'd rather go to the game at Clarence Park, Lee. I mean, most of the people at Dulwich Hamlet aren't really interested in the football, are they? That's
funny, though. You mentioned about Dulwich Hamlet. Doing the model for them. Now, you know what their ground's like. They got that stand. They got two big concourses either side of a stand, very little terracing. So these gates are 3,000, probably more than about 1,800. Can't see the game. But I remember when you used to stand in the corner filming it, you'd look down the concourse and there'd be groups of families just standing around talking. They don't give a monkeys about the football.
No.
And I think we're actually getting one or two people like that as well, which is fine. They won't go down there and spend the money. We're not going to argue about it.
I think there's quite a few people like that down there, to be honest. But if they're at the club, supporting the club, you know, even just putting their money in, so be it. That's what we want.
But don't forget as well, though, that Dulwich had their main stand built for them by Sainsbury's. You know, the owners don't have that luxury. You know, so if they want a new ground or a new stand, they're going to have to fund it all themselves. And although talks are ongoing, that's not going to happen at Clarence Park anytime soon.
Thank goodness for the cover behind the goal, even though we still got soaked.
We see leaky roof.
Yeah,
I think it was impossible not to with that rain just after the final whistle on Sunday. Right, Hemel Hempstead, the away game has been rearranged for 22nd of February 2022. So it's 22:02 at 7:45.
Advantage Tudors, apparently. Come on, you Saints.
I bet they're gutted they missed out on that Boxing Day gate when they saw what we got down there January 2nd.
Yes, by all accounts, they weren't particularly happy with that. I've heard. Boggins wasn't the happiest man in the world.
That's Mr. Boggins to you, Jacob.
Sorry, Mr. Boggins.
Yeah. Oh, well. Any other odds and ends?
Well, I mean, we have to actually predict the Welling game, don't we? But don't we also have two games on 2 nights in early January? We've got Chelmsford then Hitchin, haven't we? 2 nights in a row in 2 weeks. There's actually quite a lot of games coming up, sadly. Unless our form turns around, then I won't be complaining.
Well, you got the Saturday, the Monday, and the Tuesday. The Tuesday, the Hitchin one, that'd be the kids. No two ways about that. Because on the Monday we're away to Chelmsford, and Saturday the one we've briefly mentioned, we're going to it more next week, the Cheshunt game in the trophy. Out of the three, which one's the important one?
Hitchin.
Local pride is at stake, David. Listen to the man.
It was last Sunday, didn't get a
Yeah,
start.
I know. Look what happened then.
It's got to be Chelmsford, hasn't it? It's got to be.
Of course it has. Of course
Yeah.
it has. Ridiculous. Yeah.
They've got a formidable record. They won a home game at last.
Oh, and coming up against Dara Dada.
Form goes out. Listen, form goes out the window, boys. Come on. Who knows?
Anyway, let's get back to Welling.
Right, prediction.
I'm going to go 3-1 Saints.
Boys are full. I'm going for a score draw.
I'll put 5-5 then, Lee, yeah?
Perfect.
And I agree with your earlier comment about him as well. Right.
Excuse me.
On that note.
Yeah,
On
on
that
that note.
indeed.
I'm sure everyone's very happy we're back. I mean, how could they cope without us over Christmas?
we are the three wise kings, and of just beginning comforts of gladness and joy.
I think you two are on a different planet than me.
Yeah,
Most people
absolutely.
are, funny enough.
Absolutely.
Right, we see you all down at Parkview Road on Saturday, National League South, kick off 3 o'clock. What's that? The 8th of January. We recorded this, by the way, on Tuesday night. If you're interested, and you're probably not.
No. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Email us, tweet
Come on, you
us,
saints.
and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.